My job is catching cheaters, but I wasn't prepared for what they fed their young. I make my living in the quiet moments after a marriage dies. I'm the guy you call when you feel the cold spot in the bed next to you grow a little bigger each night. My name is Casimir, and I'm a private investigator. Mostly, that means I take pictures of people fucking who they're not supposed to be fucking. I'm good at it. Too good, maybe. The work has a way of sanding down your soul, leaving you smooth and numb to the everyday betrayals of the human heart. But this one was different. This one scraped me raw. The rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the city into a watercolor nightmare. My car, a beat-to-shit sedan that smelled of stale coffee and regret, was my office. The radio was rambling on about a weird spike in minor head injuries across the state. Doctors were baffled, calling it a fluke. I flicked my cigarette butt out the cracked window and watched it hiss and die on the wet asphalt. Waiting. That's 90% of the job. My client was a woman named Elspeth Vayner. She had the kind of old money chill that could freeze whiskey. Her husband, Julian Vayner, was a high-powered attorney, the kind of guy whose smile never quite reached his eyes. Classic setup. Julian was coming home late, smelling of a perfume that wasn't Elspeth's. She wanted the proof, the leverage. She wanted the photos that would let her burn his world to the ground with a clean conscience. I wasn't judging. It was just another Tuesday. So I sat there watching the entrance to his law firm. And right on schedule, the glass doors opened. Out walked Julian, graying hair slicked back, bespoke suit looking immaculate even in the downpour. And on his arm was a woman who was everything Elspeth wasn't. Young, vibrant, a redhead in a dress so tight it looked painted on. Her name was Saris. I'd learned that much in the weeks leading up to this. She laughed, and the sound was like little bells. The only thing marring her perfect porcelain doll face was a small, dark, almost perfectly circular bruise on her forehead, right at the hairline. Odd, but I'd seen weirder. They climbed into his Mercedes, and the hunt was on. I fell in behind them, a ghost in the river of taillights. The route was familiar. They were heading out of the city, toward the private condo Julian kept for business. I knew the place. I'd already scoped it out. I parked down the block, in the shadow of an overgrown cypress tree, and watched them go inside. This was the part of the job that always felt the most invasive. I found my perch in a thick oak tree across the street, the branches wet and slick under my hands. The darkness was a welcome cloak. Through my telephoto lens, the condo's big picture window became my own private theater. They were slow dancing in the living room, no music playing. His hands roamed her back, her hands tangled in his hair. He leaned in to whisper something to her, and she tipped her head back and laughed again. But this time, the sound was different. It didn't reach my ears, but I could see it in the way her throat moved. It looked strained. He was unbuttoning her dress. My camera clicked, quiet as a heartbeat. This was the money shot. This was the whole game right here. Just a few more. One of them on the bed, skin to skin, and I could pack it in, collect my fee, and try to drink away the image of their sad, desperate coupling. They were on the bed now, a tangle of limbs. I zoomed in, focusing. He was kissing her neck, and she was staring up at the ceiling. Her smile was gone. Her hands gripped his shoulders. Then she started to rock, not in a passionate way. It was a jerky, rhythmic motion. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Julian pulled away, a confused look on his face. He said something I couldn't hear. The rocking got more violent, like a seizure. He was trying to hold her still, shouting now. I could see the panic in his eyes. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't passion. This was something else. Something wrong. In the fraction of a second between one rock and the next, Sarah's skin split. It didn't tear. It parted, perfectly, from her hairline down to her navel, like a ripe fruit. And something new pushed its way out. It was red, raw muscle and pulsing veins. Its head was long and narrow, with huge, bulging yellow eyes set on the sides. Where a mouth should have been, There was just a puckered, fleshy hole. My finger was frozen on the shutter button. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The thing twisted its neck with a wet, popping sound. And from the hole in its face, a beak, long and black and serrated like a steak knife, tore through the flesh and shot out. It moved with impossible speed, striking Julian once on the forehead. A single sharp peck. He collapsed instantly, a puppet with its strings cut. My mind was just static. White noise. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? The creature's beak retracted back into its face with a sickening squelch. It turned and casually pulled the two halves of Ceres's skin back around itself. It made a strange, sweeping gesture with its hand, and the seam vanished. Karis was whole again, standing over the unconscious form of Julian Vayner. She dressed him, then herself, with a detached efficiency that was more terrifying than the violence. She dragged his body out of the condo like a sack of laundry, slung him in the passenger seat of the Mercedes, and drove off into the night. It took me a full 10 seconds to remember how to move. I scrambled down the tree, my ankle twisting as I hit the ground. A sharp, hot pain shot up my leg. Shit. I limped to my car, jamming the key in the ignition, and peeled out onto the street just in time to see the Mercedes taillights disappear around a corner. I followed it for what felt like an hour, my adrenaline fighting the throbbing in my ankle. The creature drove with unnerving calm, leaving the suburbs behind and turning onto a winding, unlit road that cut through a dense forest. We were the only two cars for miles. A morbid, stupid curiosity was overriding every survival instinct in my body. I had to know where it was going. Finally, the Mercedes pulled over onto a dirt clearing at the edge of the woods. I killed my lights and coasted to a stop a few hundred yards back. The creature got out, hoisted Julian over its shoulder with sickening ease, and walked into the trees. I grabbed my camera and got out, my sprained ankle screaming in protest. I followed the sounds of snapping twigs, moving as quietly as I could. Up ahead, I could see an orange glow flickering through the trees, and I could hear a sound, a low, guttural cawing, like a crow the size of a man. I crept closer until I was at the edge of a large clearing. In the center, a bonfire crackled, casting dancing shadows, and next to the fire was a nest. But it wasn't made of twigs, it was woven from bones. Rib cages, femurs, skulls, some animal, some not. In the center of the nest were two pulsating, leathery sacs, like giant, malformed eggs. The creature that was Ceres walked to the edge of the nest and dropped Julian's body. It stood over him and began to rock back and forth. Again, the skin split open, and the raw, red thing stepped out, leaving the empty human suit crumpled on the ground. It let out another one of those deafening caws. From the shadows on the other side of the nest, a second creature emerged. It was larger, thicker. They met in the center, pressing their faceless heads together in some grotesque parody of affection. Their beaks tore out of their faces in unison. They turned to Julian. He was starting to stir. He pushed himself up on his elbows, his eyes wide with uncomprehending terror. He opened his mouth and screamed, a raw, piercing sound that the forest swallowed whole. The larger creature stepped forward and pecked him, once on the forehead, in the exact same spot as before. His body went limp. Then, the two creatures went to work. They didn't eat him. They didn't skin him. One held him down while the other used its beak like a surgeon's scalpel, carefully slicing open his chest. They reached inside, their blood-red arms disappearing into his body cavity. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the camera, but I forced myself. Click, click, click. Click. I didn't know what I was documenting, but I knew it needed to be seen. They weren't feasting. They were preparing something. They pulled out his organs, not with savagery, but with a strange, methodical purpose, arranging them around the two pulsating sacs in the nest. Then I heard it. A vibration. My phone. Fucking idiot. In my panic, I fumbled it. It slipped from my sweaty grasp and hit the forest floor with a loud thud. Both creatures froze. Their heads snapped in my direction, their huge yellow eyes scanning the darkness. The larger one took a slow, deliberate step towards my hiding place. Then another. The phone was still buzzing on the ground, a death rattle. This is it, I thought. I'm going to end up as decoration in a bone nest. And then, as suddenly as it started, the call ended. The buzzing stopped. The creature paused, its head tilting. It scanned the trees for another long, agonizing moment, and then, apparently satisfied, it turned and stalked back to the nest. I didn't wait for a second invitation. I backed away, step by agonizing step, retrieved my phone, and limped back to my car as fast as my mangled ankle would allow. I didn't look back. I was doing 90 on the empty road back to town when the flashing lights filled my rearview mirror. Fuck. I pulled over, my heart hammering against my ribs. A state trooper got out of his cruiser and ambled up to my window. "Evening," he said, leaning down. He had a big, folksy smile plastered on his face. "In a bit of a hurry, weren't you?" "Sorry, officer," I mumbled. "Left the oven on." My mind was racing. Should I tell him? Show him the pictures? "Came from back on that old logging road, did ya?" he asked, his smile never wavering. His eyes were cold, unblinking. "See anything interesting out there?" "No, sir. Nothing." He just stared at me. The silence stretched. Under the brim of his hat, in the faint glow from my dashboard, I saw it. A small, dark, perfectly circular bruise on his forehead. The blood drained from my face. My foot hovered over the gas pedal. "Well," he said, finally breaking the silence. "Happens to the best of us. You have a good night now, and watch that speed." He stepped back. I nodded, put the car in drive, and pulled away slowly. Once I was around the bend, I floored it. I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment, the picture spread out on my coffee table, the horror of it all replaying in my head. In the morning, I drove to the Vayner residence. I didn't know what I was going to say. How do you tell a woman her husband was abducted and used in an alien ritual by his mistress, who is also an alien? I put the most damning photos in an envelope and rang the bell. The door was answered by Julian Vayner. He was wearing a golf shirt and smiling. He looked rested, healthy, confused as to why I was on his doorstep. "Can I help you?" he asked. My throat was dust. I saw it, clear as day, a small, dark, circular bruise on his forehead. "I'm here to see your wife," I stammered. "Elspeth." "Someone here for you," he called into the house, then disappeared from the doorway. A moment later, Elspeth appeared, a bright, polite smile on her face. As she stepped into the light of the porch, I saw it on her too. The same small, dark mark. "Yes?" she asked, her voice cheerful. "It's about your husband," I said, my voice shaking. "The job. I couldn't find anything. He's clean." Her smile widened. "Well, of course he is. He's my darling, after all." She gestured to the envelope in my hand. "Is that for me?" "No," I said, backing away slowly. "Just paperwork. Have a nice day." I got in my car and drove away, but I could feel her eyes on me the entire time, her smile never fading. That was 3 days ago. I haven't left my apartment much. The news is still calling it a head injury pandemic. They're telling people not to panic. I see them everywhere now, people with that small, dark bruise on their foreheads. The mailman, the woman at the checkout counter, the security guard in my building. I see them watching my window at night. They know, I know. I'm writing this down because I don't know what else to do. This is my report, my final one. If you see someone with a mark on their forehead, a small, circular bruise, run. Don't talk to them. Don't look them in the eye. They are not who they seem. They are being replaced. We are being replaced. I'm heading out now to buy a shotgun and as much ammo as I can carry. I'm not going to end up in one of those nests. If you don't hear from me again, you'll know they found me.